do this live message. Um, let's talk about soul selling. Let's tap into a little spirituality. And feel free in the comment section if you have any questions, if there's anything you want me to talk about with regards to soul selling. So I will say this. As a child, I always wanted to be an entertainer, a singer, a dancer, an actress. And so as a result, I heavily followed a lot of singers and actors and things on media that I knew of, right? That I could follow. Just being a kid and loving the stardom, wanting to be in that world, so I thought. And I remember being maybe around 11 years old the first time I heard of someone selling their soul. And I was watching something on TV. They were talking about selling their soul, and I didn't understand it. I was like, are people like literally selling their soul, or is that just a figure of speech? Um, since then, I've come to the conclusion. Well, I've met people who have actually sold their soul, and I've come to the conclusion that selling your soul, there's levels to it. There's levels to selling your soul. What we mean by selling your soul is compromising who you are, your beliefs, your morals, your integrity, compromising it all. There's levels to it. You know what I mean? There's smaller, lower levels of selling your soul. And then you have the deeper spiritual aspects of selling your soul. There are people who will literally sell their souls to beings. I've known some. I've come across some, and they're very troubled souls. And selling your soul is a very serious, serious thing. So let me talk a little bit about how that tends to work, right? Hey, what's up? We're talking about soul selling and what that is and what that means and the levels of it, right? And because we live in the society, especially if you live in North America, that's founded based on Masons and different organizations that are deeply rooted into the spiritual realm. And people don't realize how deeply rooted the whole design of North America is into the spiritual realm in terms of what people may consider witchcraft and different things like that. Do you need a crossroads to sell your soul? Okay, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. We're building. I love that you asked that question. But there's different levels and aspects to selling your soul. And there's smaller ways that people sell their souls, and then there's bigger, more spiritual ways that go on a whole nother level, right? I've met people who have sold their soul. And so a lot of times we're in a society that makes us feel deprived when we don't have things because we don't understand a lot of times who we are. We're not put in a position in society because of all the other demands and distractions that we are consumed with to really get to a place of self-actualization and really knowing and seeing who we are and our purpose and why we're here, right? We're consumed with all these other things, with adulting, with paying bills, with this and that. And even when you're younger, you're consumed with a lot of times trying to fit in, trying to do this, trying to do that. No one quite tells you that you're perfect the way you are. And who you are is meant to be who you are for a reason. And so because we feel a lot of this feelings of being deprived, we feel like we don't have a lot of things. We feel like we're not good enough the way we are. And so we aspire to be these things that are deemed as acceptable, as beautiful, as important, and so forth. And so a lot of times when it comes to spiritually selling your soul, there will be a being that'll come in different forms. different beings that'll come in different forms, but a being in particular that will come in different forms, and it will promise you something. Will promise you something that they know that your heart really, really, really desires, really, really, really wants. What's up, you guys? Hello from India. Something that you really, really want or feel like you need. And it may not be on the alignment of your spiritual path. But we don't know that, right? Because a lot of times we're so distracted and not knowing who we are. We're not taught to dive into living a life experience where we're focused on our life path. We're taught to, strive to be a doctor, strive to be this, strive to be that, strive to be that. And so a lot of times that gets lost in the human experience, unfortunately. And what ends up happening is that we want these things that may not be in alignment with us. I want to be a singer, but you can't sing. That might not be your gift. Your gift might be something else. But no, I desperately want to be the singer. So sometimes you will have a being that will physically or spiritually come to you, promising to make you become and help you become this thing that you feel that you want and need to be. And if you agree to these contracts, these spiritual contracts, my goodness, it can be very, very damaging to the soul. People don't realize that. They'll say, oh, well, even though you can't sing, we can make you the top singer. We could make you bigger than Beyonce. We could make you this and that. And if you, not knowing any better, fall for the okie doke, and you agree to the contract, and the way you agree is not always a verbal I agree. It's not always a physical signature of something. Sometimes the agreement people don't realize is accepting something that they give you. I know a young man who had an experience where he passed out, and when he was woken up by this being, and the being gave him a cup of water and helped him up. And I told him, I said, you should never accept that water from that being. But he didn't know. And beings like that tend to seek out the quote unquote innocent, the naive, because they don't know. And the innocence that the naive possess is a spiritual portal. Okay? The innocence that the naive possesses a spiritual portal. And so this person in particular that I know of, this one person, there's a few people I know that sold their soul. And this being won't detach from him. This being latched on to him. He didn't realize that he consented to this being being in his life by taking that cup of water that the being offered him. And he contacted me because he's like, yo, I can't get rid of this being. This being is like invading my space and my life, trying to take over. And so I referred this particular person to another spiritualist I know that cast out beings like that. But it's very interesting. You know, we can't just accept things from beings that we don't know, regardless of how much it's something we really want. Some women desperately, desperately, desperately want a man, and they put their period juice as food and all this other stuff. And sometimes things like that can turn and become fatal. You know what I mean? What's for you is for you. And it's funny because one of the tarot readers that I love, Queen Cup, shout out to Queen Cup, she recently did a video and she said, what's for you is for you. And we have to remember that sometimes rejection is protection. What is meant for you is meant for you. You might be able to get through doors and things that no one else can get through because that's a part of your path. Or that may be a part of the path that you're customizing for yourself as you co-create with the universe. You see what I'm saying? And so Someone said, let me see, let me read some of these comments. What's going on? Hey, do you need a crossroad to sell a soul? A crossroad. A crossroad of what kind? Are you talking about like a crossroad candle? Or are you talking about, what do you mean specifically by crossroad? Please clarify that question. That one's from Art Time. Good point. Small and big ways. Yeah, there's small ways that we in society conform and sell our souls. You know, we compromise our morals and dignity. You know that you don't believe in such and such, but you go and do this because that's that job and you need to get to this place and so forth. And we compromise. We compromise. And compromising doesn't always mean it's something as serious as selling your soul, but there's levels to me to selling your soul. How can you tell if someone sold their soul? That's a good question. For me, it gets revealed to me in different ways. Sometimes in dreams, sometimes in visions. But you can sometimes tell if a person sold their soul if you watch the person. You can often tell if you watch the person. Watch how they behave, pay attention to the moves they make. Because sometimes they'll do things that's not quite them. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. But I really love the fact that you guys are tuning in. If y'all got any more questions, I can answer as much as I can answer. Feel free to comment even more. But it's very interesting. Selling your soul is a very serious thing. And what people don't realize is when you sell your soul, right? The beings that you sell your soul to, they're going to come to collect because everything, it is universal law that everything is in some sort of balance. One of the laws of the universe is the law of karma. What goes around comes around. You see what I'm saying? No stone goes unturned. So it's like, if you sell your soul, you have to pay up at some point. Those beings are going to come to collect, whether they come to collect in your children, in your family members, in your friends, whether you end up having to sacrifice someone or something. Those beings are going to come to collect. And what we don't always realize is that spiritual time is not the same as the time that we calculate in the Gregorian calendar as human beings. They may say, oh, I'll come back 10 years. 10 years in spiritual time might not be 10 years to us. You know what I mean? So you got to be mindful with things like that. You have to be mindful and feel intuitively with the entity that you're communicating with. You have a lot of people that encourage this communication with different entities, but you got to know what entity you're communicating with. You know what I mean? It may be a family member that serves you well, that means you good, and then there might be somebody that don't, or a being that doesn't. You know what I mean? I had one spiritual experience that I had many years ago was with a guy that I had liked. And I didn't realize until later this man was trying to sacrifice me, him and his aunt. Now, mind you, I wasn't into spirituality on that kind of level at the time. I didn't really know of those things. And his aunt, they were Caribbean. And his aunt was a voodoo priestess. I found out later. And they were trying to sacrifice me because there was some debts that they owed, some spiritual debts to beings and different things because of stuff that they did that I wasn't privy to at first. But these things started getting revealed to me by the spirit of my unborn child coming to me and telling me things. And then I sought out help from different people that were into spirituality, and I was getting these recurring messages about it, like, whoa. You know what I mean? And had I agreed, I would have been, me giving birth to a child from that union would have been a blood sacrifice. A lot of times we walk ourselves into things that we don't know what we're getting into. And that definitely could have been me. And that's part of the reason why I'm spreading the word about this, because people will get you into things sometimes when you don't know any better, and they'll prey on your innocence. Because innocence is a portal. It's kind of like why negative people and beings target the children. They target the vulnerable. They target the innocents because they are portals. The innocence is a portal through the heart. And when you target that innocence, that portal, you can create quickly and in many ways. You can create things that will live on for almost ever. And so if you pour into that innocence of the children, whether you pour in good or whether you pour in bad, but of course, negative entities seek to pour in the negative, right? Because they want to continue to live. They continue to exist. It's kind of like, to me, if someone harms you in childhood, that person goes on with their life. They keep going. They ain't thinking about what they did to you most of the time in childhood, but you do. You continue to think about it. You continue to dwell on it. It stays in your mind. It stays in your spirit. It affects your life and it lives on because you keep it going and progressing and you keep it existing. And it lives on. The person who harmed you could have died. But that harm that they've done in your childhood will still resonate in your mind. And so it lives on. And a lot of these beings become in some sort eternal if they pour the negativity into the portal of innocence. And this is why they target the children. This is why they target the vulnerable. This is why they target the animals, the things that are seen as quote unquote innocent. You see what I'm saying? It gives them a way to live eternally, if that makes sense. You understand what I'm talking about? Let me know in the comment section what you guys are thinking, if you have any questions, or if you understand what I'm talking about, if y'all feeling me, or if y'all need me to break that down a little bit more. I hope it's resonating with you guys. Someone wrote mom. I don't understand that, but please explain what you mean by mom. Are you saying your mom sold her soul? And it's an unfortunate situation, but it's what we deal with. Everything is polarity everywhere we go in this realm. Everything is polarity. Just as you have good and you have love and light, you have darkness. And all darkness isn't bad and all light is not good. Lucifer is the light bearer. All light is not good. All darkness is not bad. You manifest quicker in the darkness. We are birthed through the darkness in the water of the womb. All darkness is not bad. You know what I mean? It's how you use and integrate the energy of the light and the dark and get them to work together in yourself to get to a certain level of mastery, of spiritual mastery, so that you can co-create even more in alignment with the universal order and with the divine. If that makes sense, if you guys understand what I'm talking about with that. Yeah. It's pretty interesting. I don't think I usually go this deep into my conversations on this channel, but I probably should. I usually have these kind of conversations with friends who are into the spirituality one-on-one. You know, we have these in-depth conversations a bit more. But yeah, selling your soul is a very serious thing. But like you said, there's levels to it. And the type of society we live in America, they're going to cost you. They're going to make you compromise your morals to some degree. If you believe in the Kemetic laws, for example, you're going to compromise some of those Kemetic laws. Living in North America, and unless you go completely off grid and do your own thing, you're going to compromise some of those morals. For example, I'll give an example, a personal example. One of the laws of Ma'at, I have not taken food from a baby's mouth. Now, me working in education, I've worked at places where we were only allowed to give the kids a certain amount of food for fear of childhood obesity, preservation of food, and all this other stuff. And I had kids that were still hungry, that still wanted more food, that lived in a shelter. But sometimes I had to tell a baby, okay, after two, there's no more. I've taken food from a baby's mouth from that perspective. You see what I'm saying? For a job. For a job, for a freaking job. But whenever I could, and nobody was around micromanaging me, I get that baby some extra food if they want some extra food, because I know that they come from the shelter. I know that they're going to eat the food. I don't know what meals are going to be like for that child when they go back home. You understand? I actually work with children right now for many years who have special needs. That's what I do. That's why I'm not always up here. I'm working and doing 1,000,001 things, trying to take over the world in my own right. And I work with children who have autism, mainly. I've worked with children who have intellectual disabilities, some learning disabilities, all kinds of stuff. It's a blessing, and I absolutely, absolutely love working with these children. I think these children are tapped in ways that the average one of us is not. But I think that they're also a lot of times poisoned by the different things in society that contributed to their disability. But there's so many factors. So everyone's situation is different. I think I know for a fact the vaccinations definitely play a role in these disabilities. Even reading psychoeducational reports from children, from the families, from the evaluators, where the child was progressing normally up into a specific age, where they received certain vaccinations, and all of a sudden the child starts regressing. They stop talking, things like that. This society can be very wicked, and part of that is because, in my opinion, because we're made in God's image and we're given free will. And because we're made in God's image and we're given free will, some people use the free will wisely, and some people use the free will in a negative way to cause more destruction. One thing about evil people is evil people recognize an aspect of their power that people who are quote unquote not evil don't recognize and don't realize. A lot of people who are quote unquote good people, good-hearted, live on their knees, in the sense of they don't realize or recognize a lot of times their own power past a certain extent. Whereas a person who is quote unquote evil don't give a fuck, and they know that they can have a certain power. I've known of people who would do things to children because they could, and they knew they could. Before working in education, I worked in child welfare. I've been a child protection specialist. I've been a foster care worker. I've worked in mental health with families as a mental health therapist. And even though I'm relatively young to people, I have a lot of these very, very interesting experiences that kind of shaped my perspective on a lot of things. And I got to see how all of these different systems are all kind of in cahoots with one another. They all kind of work together to further break people down, break apart families, to further cause more destruction so that the government can have its way and say with the people however they please. You feel me? I mean, I've seen a lot of that stuff firsthand. But you have some people that'll just cause destruction just because they can, because they know that there's a level of their power that they can do it. And until people really recognize their power and their inner God energy, they're going to continue to be victimized by people who recognize their power and who want to do evil, unfortunately. You know what I mean? A lot of people believe something is going to save them. Someone or something outside of themselves is going to save them, not understanding that you have to save yourself or make the steps towards saving yourself, so something else could meet you there and save you, or you just got to completely save yourself. You know what I mean? A lot of things are energetic frequencies that we put out. Everything is energetic frequencies that we put out. What we put out, we attract, whether we realize it or not. If we put out the energetic frequency of helplessness, powerlessness, we will continue to reap a lot of challenges in this realm. And then we'll end up repeating and coming back in this realm and coming back again and coming back again and coming back again. And some people consciously choose to come back in this realm because there's a lot of beings that want to be in this realm because the level of, I think it's because the level of power and freedom that we have in this realm. You know what I mean? Animals don't really deviate from their ways of being. You never see a cat go and fuck a dog. You know what I mean? You ain't gonna see a rat and a bear mate just because they can. No, they don't deviate from the natural order and structure of things. But human beings do that because we can, because we have that free will. We're made, quote unquote, in God's image according to the Bible. And so because we can do that, we cause a lot of destruction on this planet and in this realm. But if we understood and understood that power on a different level, we could cause a lot of healing and rebirth and shift things. But there's always going to be the opposite because that's the nature of this realm. There's always going to be the opposite. It's kind of like, I always compare it to Super Mario Brothers back in the day. You go through all the changes, you jump over this and jump over that. You make it to the end, you go down the tunnel, then there's another beast to defeat. Then you're like, you got to keep going. You every time you die, you come back. Every time you die, you come back. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. You know what I mean? You die, you come back to fight it again and fight the beast again. And then once you defeat that beast, then you can go on to the next realm. And there's different realms. There's different dimensions. And one thing that's very beautiful about the human experience is that you can tap into the different dimensions a certain way. The human experience is a gift that we don't even realize that we have because we don't understand what it is on a deeper and spiritual level. There's so many beings that are begging and dying to come in this realm that will love to destiny swap with us and swap places with us so they can have this free will that we don't realize and we take for granted and we, don't really use to the best of our ability. And so it goes very, very deep. It goes very, very deep. Think of all the destruction that humanity causes. We destroy the earth, we waste food, we waste this, we destroy the animals, we kill things, we kill each other. All because we fucking can. That's crazy to me. That's crazy work. But just as we have this free will to do those things, we can also shift things. You can shift your own prophecy if we really, really, really understood on a deeper level our power as humanity. You can shift your own prophecy. You don't have to be destined for anything you don't want to be destined for. You can change it. If you ever seen the movie The Butterfly Effect, one simple thing changes the man's whole trajectory of his life path. If we learn and tap into the frequency of co-creating with the universe, you can shift your own prophecy. You can shift your own frequency. You can change things to make it the way you want to. But you got to remember it comes at a cost. You may say, I want to be the best, this and that, and this and that, and this and that. But in order for you to do that, you can't have children. For example, you see what I'm saying? And so we have to be mindful and cognizant of that. Because we have this ability to co-create, we have this ability to reshape things. It's a certain responsibility that we have to that, Continued enlightenment be upon the heads of you and yours. Namaste, Ashe. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. You know, it's a very beautiful experience, the human experience, but it's not always beautiful. Sometimes you're given the cards that are really, really hard. You're dealt hard cards, but you can change it once you get to a certain level of knowing who you are and understanding your power. You can change it. You don't have to be a victim to those things unless you choose. When you understand victimhood, you understand that to some degree, just like with selling your soul, you give consent without even realizing. Can't nobody take your soul without your consent. Can't no being be in your fucking house without your consent. You can cast them out with your words and with your power. Let a motherfucker come in here spiritually and think they're going, fuck out of here. I had to learn that. You know what I mean? I had people who would come in the room spiritually spying and be in corners and shit. And I had a good friend that used to be like, get the fuck out of here. I could see you. And she helped teach me that. And I was like, what? You could tell him. In my head, I'm like, you could tell him to get out. Yeah, you can. We don't understand our power because we're taught to think of ourselves as helpless as humanity. We're taught to think of ourselves as helpless and powerless. We're put in positions to make us feel helpless and powerless, but we're really, really not. We're really, really not. We have more power than we understand. That's why we always have to be, that's why it's a constant thing, and it's a constant global gaslighting to make the people feel powerless, to make them in positions where they're impoverished, to make them in positions where they're experiencing certain things, to put things like racism, because racism to me is one of the biggest fucking spells in our society. It's one of the biggest fucking spells. I would love sharing on my feed. Absolutely, feel free. Feel free. Thank you. I appreciate you. I always say balance is key. Absolutely. Balance is key. You know what I mean? And it's a struggle to learn how to balance in a society that doesn't make it as conducive as it could be for us to balance. You know, they put us in these positions. Lauryn Hill has a song, and in the lyrics, she says, are you sure it's God you're serving, obligated to a system getting less than you're deserving? I never forgot that. Because I said, damn, Lauryn, what's she tapping into with that? Are you sure it's God you're serving? Obligated to a system, getting less than you're deserving. Who made up these rules, I say? Who made up these rules, I say? Animal conditioning to keep you as a slave. Oh, I get out of all these boxes. I get out. You can't hold me in these chains. I'll get out. That's when she made the song, I Get Out, because she was freeing herself. Knowing my condition is the reason I must change. Let's get out. Let's get out. Let's get out. We can get out. And we don't know we can get the fuck out. You could come from the worst conditions ever. But when you realize your power and you get into that place and that space, you can get the fuck out of it. You can get the fuck out of it. You don't have to be a victim. I used to be in domestic violence relationships, all kinds of things. I didn't think I could do any better. I didn't think I was worth more. I didn't know my worth, honey. I didn't know my worth. I let these men who were nowhere near on my level be in my space. They should have been honored to be in my fucking space. And the thing about it is that I let them be in the space, and I was honored for them to be in my space because I didn't know who I was and I didn't know my worth. I thought they was doing me a favor. I didn't think I was lovable. I didn't think I was beautiful. I didn't think I was intelligent. I let all of these things from my human experience in my younger years and all these negative experiences mold and shape me to have such a negative self-concept until I decided I need to get the fuck out of this. And the more I got out, the more I sought to get out, the more I was able to get more energetically things to help me get out. The more I was able to attract more things to help me get out, because the ancestors in the universe were like, oh, we see she's starting to get it. She's starting to get it. She's raising her frequency. Let's go help her. Let's help her. A lot of people say, oh, the chosen ones. Ain't nobody fucking chosen. You choose yourself. Like Queen Cut be saying, and I love when she says that shit, because I'm like, yo, that's really what it is. Everybody has the capacity to be quote unquote chosen. We're all chosen. It's the path that you choose for yourself. And everybody chooses whatever path they feel like is best for them. Some people lazy. Some people don't want to be more than what they are at the time. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you need people to play every position. I have a friend, right? And we was having a conversation a few years back. Because the friend was working at the time in like food service. And they have a relative who also works in food service. So the relative was like, they was having a conversation with the relative, and it was like, yo, let's take this test. You know what I mean? And you could take this test and become manager, make more money, blah, blah, blah. And the relative was like, nah, I don't want to take that test. So the friend was like, why not? You know what I mean? The relative was like, nah, that costs $25, this and that. And the friend was like, wait a minute, but yeah, it's $25 and you got to study, but you'll make a lot more money if you pass that test. And I had to explain to that friend, everybody is not meant to go the same places. Everybody doesn't have the same path. You might be thinking from the aspect of a supervisor, manager, CEO. That person might not have that mindset, and that's okay. Because people are needed to play every position. Everybody is not meant to be CEO. Everybody is not meant. Some people meant to be the worker and the employee. Some people meant to be the foot soldiers. And there ain't nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment. But you go on your path and you strive for what you feel intuitively and spiritually is for you. What is for you is for you. Not for everyone else all the time. Many times. You know what I mean? Ain't nothing wrong with that. Listen, if you owned a McDonald's and you the CEO or the owner or the franchise owner, you can't be there flipping burgers and making the fries. Somebody got to flip the burgers. Somebody got to make the fries. Everybody plays a position to help everything run well, like a well-oiled machine. Everybody can't be the CEO delegating to everyone else. Everybody can't flip the burgers and flip the fries. You need people to be in every position. And that's how things are in life. That's how the society is created. That's how things are in the natural order of things. Everything plays a part. Everything plays a part. The animals play a part. The people play a part. The spirits play their part. Everybody plays a part. The trees play their part. The flowers play their part. The insects play their part. Everything that exists plays a part so that it can coexist and get everything free flowing within the universe the way that it needs to go, within society, within the world, to make everything run like a well-oiled machine. There's things that are happening in the ethers as well as in the skies to allow the rain to fall down and descend from the clouds. The rain is necessary so it can grow the plants and grow the crops so people can eat. So the animals could eat. So the flowers can grow and be pollinated. You feel what I'm saying? Everything has a part to play. Yes, learn your position, play your part. Exactly. And if that's not the part you want to play, then you got to make the moves and put in the work to play a different position. You see what I'm saying? I've known people personally who have sold their soul. I have I have a couple of personal experiences with people who sold their souls, tried to use me as their sacrifice, and I did not know. I did not know. And when I got hip to it many years later, I said, "Oh, I'm not your sacrifice, and I won't be. That's not what I choose for myself. And you don't have to be anybody's sacrifice. You don't have to be. You know what I mean? But I thank you guys so much for the love. I thank y'all for listening. I know I haven't been live or posting much, but I'm going to close out, and just feel free to share my video. Feel free to comment even after I close out. Feel free to comment. Thank y'all so much for the love. We're going to close out because I got to get some stuff done. I got some things and some running around I got to do. But I love y'all, and thank you so much. This is your girl Asma, the Alchemist. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, share it. Look at my little tarot readings, my little commentary and shit. I love y'all. Help my channel grow. I've been struggling trying to get to 1,000 subscribers for the longest. I'm stuck at like 900 or something for the longest. I remember I was like at 700. I remember when I was at 300 and I was at 800. So I'm trying to get to 1,000 so I can put out even more stuff. And I'm building my own self-confidence in this as well. So I really appreciate you guys. Thank y'all so much. And have a wonderful, wonderful, abundant, and blessed day. Peace, y'all.